All right, reportedly, Kawhi Leonard has asked the Clippers for a point guard. Let's talk about it. Hit that subscribe button, bell icon button, share the video. And actually, the cheap options, the high risk, high reward options, and also the mid tier options. But yeah, he probably tired of bringing the ball up the court. He got a PG already, got a Paul George. Paul George could bring the ball up the court, but I guess he looking for a guy that can play make. You know what I'm saying? And he can be a ball handler and a distributor and all that, but what a real point guard to do for him is, basically he'll control the offense. It'll be less on him. He can post up. He can show us off the ball skills. He can catch and shoot. He can, it's just, he can cut to the basket. And with Patrick Beverley, he's just the guy out there that really can defend his position. He more of the Derek Fisher's type where I can 3 and D, and when you got that type of guy there, as long as you got Lamar Odom or Kobe Bryant or, somebody like that, that can really handle the ball, that's when you need those type of point guards. You know what I'm saying? When you don't have a Scottie Pippen, Jordan like that, and you got a Kawhi and a Paul George, which both of them can bring the ball up the court. But every time you bring the ball up the court, the 5 guys on defense is focused on you. So he probably tired of having to break down the defense and kick it to somebody else, which will take less energy off of him when, let's say instead of, 100% of the time, he breaking down the defense and facilitating, with a point guard like Chris Paul per se, he breaking down the defense, finding his own shot and finding your shot. A point guard makes all the difference, able to break down the defense, able to take attention off of you, find you on the backdoor cut, find you off the curl. Now you can catch and shoot. Now you can really get easy buckets. Playing off the ball it's easier, for most guys. Some guys like LeBron need the ball in his hand, and he is a point guard by trade. He's a Scottie Pippen, Grant Hill. He's a point forward. He's a facilitator. But when you got somebody that can break down the defense and they can find you on the backdoor cuts or cut you off those curls, you catch and shoot, cut you off those screens, backdoor and catch and shoot, and they can find you, they make the game easier for you. So now, in them game-winning situations, now, even if I do have to take the last shot, the defense has to respect the point guard first. You know what I'm saying? So they got to respect Chris Paul's ability to break down the defense and find you or whoever your point guard is, Rondo, more than, okay, this the 40th time he come down court and he going to go 1-on-5. So if this is the 40th time Kawhi or Paul George bring the ball up the court, what else can they do? He can go baseline fade away. He can go step back for the 3. He can step back hezzy and go to the rim. We know he's going to take the last shot. He's going to kick it. This time, they ain't used to, what you doing all day. This time, this might be, instead of your 50th time, this might be your 10th time coming down court for the game-winning situation. So now your repertoire is open. That's what a point guard would do for him. He wouldn't have to have that ball handle responsibilities, and he won't have to create his offense all the time by itself. Who else can create offense over there? Nobody. Who else do we trust to find him back door? And nobody. So I get what he's saying. Patrick Beverley is more of a backup point guard. So you can go through his choices. Okay, we can go through the cheap tier. You probably have Derrick Rose or Dennis Smith Jr. Now Dennis Smith Jr. he has athletic ability. He just ain't been healthy. He got good defensive potential. He could be an all-star if he could stay healthy. What you have to get out of him is consistency, good health, and mentally, I think Tyronn Lue can get the best out of him because he's been a point guard. So Smith can break down the defense. He can play make a little bit. That could be one of your cheaper options. If everything failed, I could trade for Dennis Smith Jr. for nothing. He's not doing nothing over there with them. But also in New York, you got Alfred Payton. Another guy who can defend, and also he can facilitate, and he started to shoot the ball a little better. So the Knicks got 2 cheap options that can work. That allow you to keep Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and a few other guys over there. So Alfred Payton, he can defend his position. He can break down the defense. And, guess what? He can catch and shoot a bit, and I think he's going to improve doing that. So he has some little health issues, but guess what? You got 2 premier wing defenders in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You got a premier backup point guard and that can defend in Patrick Beverley. Now you put Alfred Payton out there when Alfred Payton and Patrick Beverly go out there, there's no drop off. They could remind me like Lindsey Hunter and Mike James for the championship Pistons, where I can put them pit bulls out there together and they can lock shit down. So I like Alfred Payton. I like Dennis Smith Jr. as a cheaper option, but I mean, it may be a situation where they can get both of them. You know, because where Smith Jr. might get hurt, Alfred Payton can pick up and he could be a facilitator. So it might be a situation where you get a backup in point guard. You might get 2 starting point guards where one can back up and one you could build their value up and then eventually trade them. So with Dennis Smith Jr., he can be an all-star. He give you everything. Facilitation, he can score, he can dunk. You know, he just has to learn how to use his athleticism in spurts so he won't get injured so much. So I like both of those guys. You look at also Derrick Rose in Detroit. I think he want to be closer to Chicago. That's why he started saying Minnesota, Detroit area. So that might be a better fit for Milwaukee if he don't want to leave Chicago so far. But if Derrick Rose come over there, then I still think you have to bring a Smith Jr. in or Alfred Payton in to back him up, because Derrick Rose can't play 82 and give you 20, 30, 40, 20, 30 games in the playoffs. So Derrick Rose is a good point guard to really bring off the bench and kind of, be in, game winning situation. So also you got the high risk, high reward guy in John Wall. You can bring in John Wall. We know he don't shoot the ball well, but we know John Wall can hit a big shot. We know John Wall can facilitate. We know John Wall can defend. We know John Wall can get to the rim and finish or kick it out. And physically, since the leg injury, since the Achilles blowing it out twice, he looked pretty good. Is it a risk year? He just signed a monster contract. But also, once again, you talking about a guy, who can do the same thing Alfred Payton can do. He can defend. He athletic. He can find guys. The only issue with John Wall is you got to let him know you can't play with the ball 24/7. We really like you to play with the ball 70% of the time, but we need you to let Kawhi in game-winning situations do this. So if John Wall is healthy and mentally he's ready to take the next jump. Paul. I mean, you probably have to trade Paul George to get him, to be honest. But if you do trade for John Wall, you might as well get Thomas Bryant in return too. So you can get you a center and a point guard. So if you trade Paul George over there, you got to get Thomas Bryant from them. So you probably got to trade Zubac and Paul George and get Thomas Bryant and John Wall. Or if you don't want to get Thomas Bryant, you trade Paul George for John Wall and get a first-round draft pick. So those are the questions. But I would rather have Thomas Bryant. You go on, you talking about how about bringing Chris Paul back to the organization as well too. And Chris Paul definitely could be a guy that can get him there. But also he's a guy that got some injury issues like Dennis Smith Jr. And we all know in the critical times in Lob City, when they're supposed to make that next jump, him and Blake Griffin got injured and they, kept, revolving injuries. I get injured, you get injured, we both injured. So Chris Paul would be a good look going back to LA for them. He could score. It'll put him in position to get a championship. But really, you have to bring a third team in, all right? Unless you trade OKC and say, you know what, we give you Trez, we give you Lou Williams, we give you Patrick Beverly, and you have to sign trade Trez over there, because they got all your draft picks. So it's going to be hard to get Chris Paul unless you bring a third team in. You also got Rajon Rondo as well out there. And with Rajon Rondo out there, it's going to be tough because he's going to want some money. But if you can get Rondo there, it'd be good. I mean, that's in the same vein as Alfred Payton, John Wall. He's a guy that can defend, but don't shoot too well. I heard he shot well in the bubble. That's the bubble. But he can defend. He can facilitate. And also, that could be a good look. And then also, you got De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento, who, in my opinion, he may or may not come back. They may or not want to re-sign him. They probably going to trade Buddy Hield to make room for him and Bojanovic, or keep him and sign him. But that's a guy to keep his eye on. I mean, also, Lonzo Ball is another guy to keep your eye on. A guy that can defend once again. He shot 40%. I don't put too much stock in the bubble. Everybody wasn't prepared. I think Lonzo would be a good fit in LA. Once again, you got 3 good defenders. You got Paul George. You got Kawhi. You got Lonzo Ball. And it might not take that much to bring Lonzo Ball. And he almost in the contract here where he almost get an extension. You probably get the best out of Lonzo Ball. So, if you can get Lonzo, I mean, it's just so many options for them. And they don't have to hit a home run. The Wizards would happily get on John Wall for nothing. But Lonzo would fit too. And you just look at some of the guys that got defensive potential, like defensive, who's really good defensively. Rondo, Peyton, Wall, Lonzo. Like, if you could really get them to come in here and fit in this offense, the Clippers can be really good defensively. Now, personally, what I do as far as them, I would want to keep as much core as intact. So to be honest, I try to go to New York and get Smith Jr. And I try to get both Alfred Payton and Smith Jr. Both of those guys don't make a lot of money. You know, if I can get both of those guys, fine. But if you ask me to pick one, I get Alfred Payton. Then my next option, to be honest, I'm probably looking at John Wall. I get John Wall the opportunity. So I probably look at John Wall, try to get Thomas Bryant. I actually get somebody in the middle, get John Wall. I'll think about that. So, what would you give up to get John Wall? You have no pick. So you definitely looking at Lewis Williams. You definitely probably looking at signing Montrez, and you're probably looking at giving Patrick Beverly up. So you have to lose those three to get John Wall and Thomas Bryant. Now, if you can lose those three, bring John Wall in, Thomas Bryant, and get their number one pick, do it. But you got to remember also, John Wall, he ain't particularly loved there neither. So you also can trade Paul George for John Wall, get Thomas Bryant, and a number one pick for the next 2 years. So that's something you can look at as well. Derrick Rose, that can be somewhere fit. Rondo, if you can sign him, that can fit. There's some really good fits. And also, a dark horse might be bringing Lonzo in. Remember, Drew Holiday is a point guard by trade as well. So, Rondo or Drew Holiday, the Clippers got some options. And, we'll see. But Kawhi begging for a point guard, I definitely see the need. Why? And that's kind of spitting Patrick Beverly's face. But Patrick Beverly is a guy that's a bench guy. He'll come off, give you energy. But I can see a situation where all three of them get traded. Patrick Beverly and Lou Williams. I can see a situation where that happens. But also, you got Paul. You can trade Paul George too. You can trade Paul George to the Knicks and probably bring Mitchell Robinson, Alfred Payton, or Dennis Smith Jr. and Kevin Knox. People say, well, the Knicks have nothing nobody want. Knicks got players. They just don't have a good organization around them. So, also you got Todd Gibson over there. You got Frank Chianina. I can't pronounce his name for Frank. You got some potential over there. It's just an organization that's suppressing a lot of the potential over there. So, I can see Paul George, Melo, and Chris Paul, the rest of Westbrook meeting up in New York. Instead of building a super team, build the best team you could build if you're the Clippers. So if you bring back Trez and you also bring in Mitchell Robinson, you got two guys in the middle for a long time. You bring in Alfred Payton, you got a guy that can shoot just a little bit. He can defend, he can facilitate, So you don't lose Trez, you don't lose Patrick Beverly, you don't lose Lewis Williams. So in a situation, you can keep them on the bench. You can go out there, and try out there Alfred Payton, Mitchell Robinson. You can try out Kawhi Leonard. You can try those guys out, and then you fill in wherever you need. If you develop Kevin Knox, maybe that fit him. So it's a lot of things they can do. They can trade Paul George to the Knicks and bring in picks and bring in young guys. You know what I'm saying? You can bring in Mitchell Robinson, and I think he's gonna be a stud for a long time. So it's just so many possibilities for Kawhi Leonard, bro, for the Clippers as well. And remember, I heard Kawhi and Paul George can opt out after next year anyway. So it's just so many possibilities for them to build a really good basketball team. And I think for them, I would take strength in numbers. Get away from the super team. Build the best possible team that you can build. And me personally, I probably would look to trade Paul George to the Knicks. Get picks. I just finesse the fuck out of them. Get picks. Before Chris Paul or Westbrook get over there, I get picks and I take the young guys that I want. I get their number one this year. I take Alfred Payton. I take Mitchell Robinson. And I take Kevin Knox. And I say that's, you have part, and they probably do it. And then they can get Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul for a little bit of nothing. Because those teams doesn't want those contracts. And then Melo come back and his former agent, Leon Rose, is actually the new GM for the Knicks. So, that's what I would do. I would just build a team. I re-sign Trez, I keep Lewis, I keep Patrick, and I bring in those Knicks players over there, and I build the best team possible. So, a lot of people might disagree with me, but that's what I would do. Not perfect, but hey, let me know what you guys think. Let me know. Don't forget we on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also got a Facebook group. All those links in the description. If you ever got business question, cry, response, shit, video requests, Keep sharing the videos. The best way to donate to the channel is to share the video. Hit the subscribe button, bell icon button. If you want to make a donation, Cash App CJ Good 313. PayPal link in the description. Appreciate the love, support. One time for the one time we go.